You're watching Roll for Crit. We are at PAX Unplugged 2019, and this is the big one, folks. They just recently announced the sequel to Gloomhaven, titled Frosthaven. It's here at PAX Unplugged. They're unveiling a lot of details about it online and here at the show. We, unfortunately, did not get the chance to actually demo the game, but we did attend a big panel with the designer. Tom Vassell interviewed Isaac Childress, and they talked a lot about the details, what's going to be the same, what's going to be different. So let's set it up for the people. How does this one relate to the original Gloomhaven?
So this is a standalone product that takes place post-Gloomhaven story-wise. There will be maybe a couple times, they said, and you can, if you're curious, you can look at the map of this one and think they said it's about northeast, if I recall exactly. They said like the Undying Passage, so it sort of lines up. This takes place, as I said, in the north, and as you can guess, there's a bit more of a cold tundra theme, hence Frosthaven. And in this game, it'll play a lot similar. They add some new mechanics to make it a bit more complicated. You still start off with 6 basic characters. You will unlock more, of course, as you go along. You will have a lot of the same mechanics as before with like your summons, you'll have your element tokens are still going to be a big part, over 100 scenarios, the big thing there. And this game, if you are hopeful and you have the old Gloomhaven, you will be able to bring some things over, actually. There'll be an importer, they said, you can unlock that will help bring things over, so not everything, I think, but a couple of things. They also said that characters can be mixed, whether they're from Gloomhaven or from the Frosthaven. They can go back and forth, I think, because game mechanically the combat is still the same in terms of how they work and interact with each other. But some of those new mechanics, or maybe old returning mechanics, may have been changed a little bit to make them a bit more balanced or stronger. Yeah, so of course there's going to be some new status effects. We didn't hear about all of them, but a couple of the big ones. There is Brittle, which is bad if you are brittle, because that means you're going to take extra damage. That could be applied to enemies too, however. Same goes for the other keyword status, Bane. If you have Bane, so they're doing away with the instant kill thing that some people apparently had problems with. Yeah, we never saw it.
It didn't come across our paths, but some people said it was too easy. So with Bane now, that will just do a hard 10 damage if the character is not able to rest and get rid of that Bane status. But you'll have a turn to get rid of it, but still very, very frightening. There's also some big new changes to this game overall, including Frosthaven itself. You now have a hub world you're going to be coming back to, and you're actually going to be able to build that one up. So as the game goes on, you can be pooling your resources. You'll be finding wood, all sorts of resources, stone from around your different scenarios and your missions, and you can use those as a team or for yourself, if you get enough, to build buildings, defenses, all kinds of stuff that will give you new opportunities, new abilities from your hub world. Well,
not just the hub world, weapons and armor. This really is more about surviving and crafting. And we should mention, he said, while you can pull resources together, it's still built in that way where you're semi-cooperative and don't want to share some of the stuff.
Right.
And you can't share some of the other items, just like in regular Gloomhaven.
Right. The resources are the one thing that's different. Also, it is cold up here, but there's this season system in this one where it's going to be summer or winter, and that will rotate after a number of sessions. He said 15. I'm not sure if that's finalized. Of course, some of the stuff could change, but that will affect the events that come out. In winter, they're going to be a lot harsher, so you're really going to have to gear up and prepare for that harsh winter to come. Now, of course, we said there are 6 classes that you can choose at the beginning. They are all brand new. Were there any that stood out to you that sounded like the kind you would like to try, or that just sounded unique or different?
I mean, the poster one, the Vanguard, I think sounded really awesome. I think it was Vanguard. She had this ability where she actually can play cards, but only if allies are in certain positions. But she can summon her own little ally that isn't very strong, but they did change it so it doesn't get lost right away. It goes back to your discard. Apparently, the summons were considered really weak by a lot of players, so they tried to make it so they buffed them up so that they get added back in. There's actually another character who has a heavy summon resource, the Necromancer, and they brought this up because a lot of the characters have different resources that they pull from. Necromancer actually spends life, so she has to really worry about that. There's another one whose name I forget, but actually has 2 different decks because it's sort of like this split personality hive swarm.
Yeah.
Like one's ranged and one's melee, so like you have to decide which deck you're pulling from.
Yeah, it's really interesting stuff. The Necromancer definitely, as someone who I have fond memories still of our Descent campaign playing a Necromancer.
Well, and of your old rat
and in
friends.
Gloomhaven, I do like having summons, so I think that's really cool. I also love there's one new class that has the ability to alter time, so you can choose to either speed up or slow down
They're pretty
time.
much the Prince of Persia.
Yeah, I mean, that's awesome, and that works in an interesting mechanical way, in the universe of the game. So that's very exciting. Who knows what those other 10 classes that are within will bring. And then the other big thing to me, like huge change, or addition I should say, is this book of puzzles that's going to be in there. And at some point, I don't think it's at the start of the game, but at some point you'll be able to access this book. It's a literal book, and it'll kind of have these, he said, escape room style puzzles that as the game goes on, you'll be trying to solve using clues from the game and some whatever the puzzles are in the book.
Even if you find the puzzle, you might actually not be able to solve, or very unlikely for you to solve it yet. I mean, if you're a cryptographer, he said, I think they had something in there that you might be able
maybe.
to solve.
And you'll be getting lore from that. So I don't know if any of that is necessary. It may give you hints of how to progress, but maybe it's just for fun. I'm not sure. Either way, a lot of stuff was vague because they really didn't want to spoil anything for this, because of course, if you're going to get this, you want to go in fresh.
Another little cool thing was that there's apparently there's new races, of course, but depending on how you deal with them, you can befriend them or become begrudging allies, I guess he said. I can't remember the exact terminology.
Right.
And unlock them as playable characters. The characters being the new, they're not Inox, they're sort of like the Yeti cousin of them. So the snow version of them. And they have 2 different tribes. I think it's like they have a religious war sort of going on. And I think the snow speakers and ice speakers.
Yeah, something like that.
There's these water crab people, which are really funny because he said, the few that you'll play as are psychic. That's pretty much a way for us to explain why you're able to talk to each other.
Yeah.
And then finally, apparently there are robots, so we're going to get some magic Mirrodin action on here as well.
One of the things that carried over that I did really appreciate from the first Gloomhaven was how I didn't feel like any of the classes were like, oh, this is the elf or whatever. Very unique, and the lore, the monsters, all of it feels really different and cool to me, and they're definitely bringing that over. So if you've seen our review of Gloomhaven, you know that, well, at least for me, I'll say, I think that game is amazing, but I certainly had issues with it, and it wasn't a home run for either of us the way I think for a lot of people it was. Now, so listening to this panel, learning new information, a part of me was a little disappointed because some of our issues had to do with the combat itself, and he was very clear that that's pretty much staying the same, which I think is probably the right choice because most people, I think, loved what that did. But what I did think kind of, in a way, addressed both of us. The city building thing, I know you love that.
I think ever since Assassin's Creed 2, I'm obsessed with that kind of rebuilding your hub world and doing that. I mean, in our Dungeons & Dragons campaign, I keep sort of being like, can I do something like that? And and also weapon crafting as well. I'm big because Monster Hunter, that's exactly that kind of thing. So that's really exciting to me. It's not just, oh, I got money. I'm thinking a bit more on that. Oh, I can make that axe now or something. So that's a big thing for me.
And for me, that book of puzzles, I love that idea. I love escape room type puzzles, but the idea that it's not essential to the game, it's kind of a side thing, but maybe you don't know the answer yet. Maybe you play for the weekend your couple of Gloomhaven sessions, Frosthaven in this case, and you're thinking about those puzzles, and you can come back to it the next week and you'll discover something. That just sounds like such an interesting layer, and in general it sounds like more maybe events that will hopefully add a little bit more of that thematic storytelling touch to it that I think we felt was missing a little bit, or maybe could have been implemented a little better in comparison to the just pure tactical combat of the first Gloomhaven.
Well, I know for us, one of the big things was the story. If it didn't, the hooks didn't grab us as much. But with this, I was already got some of those hooks interested. The ward, because he went into detail about how the snow speakers, they think the voice of God comes from the sky, and the ice speakers, I assume, from the ground where it freezes. And I can imagine that being plenty of interesting things. That kind of Civil War stuff almost always goes well in a story.
Right.
And then some of the zombies he showed, I feel like maybe it's just to throw up, and I'm like, okay, something big dark is happening, but we don't know yet.
Yes.
I think that shows
there's
a bit more.
Clearly a lot happening in the story that we're just at the surface. But even the surface of we're mercenaries and we're going to protect this town, that's kind of cool. I'm kind of in on that too, even though that's pretty bare bones.
So we'll have to see when we're doing it. By the way, there is a lot of people who are asking, will there be a tutorial, or will this be something to balance the make because it's already so hard in regular Gloomhaven? He's like, no, not really. We're looking at the tutorial. The game, we're just adding it to add more challenges to you because hopefully you've already completed the campaign, but a lot of people, I think there are a lot to complete the base, but not everything. I think
yes,
including the expansion. He said he liked a lot of things from the Gloomhaven's been brought here, because I think you said segmenting the scenarios a bit more, which is probably also nice because that's more like chapter checkpoints you can feel, which means you felt like you did something.
Yeah, he said they're focusing on the upcoming Jaws of the Lion standalone, that's really, if you're new to the board games or new to Gloomhaven, it's good to start there.
Right, and because they're making that product, I didn't think that was too bad that they didn't have a tutorial, because I'm like, look, they're having something there that's in particular also, it's if you're not going to like it, it's cheaper, so you don't feel as bad. And if you love it, congrats, you can go into the Gloomhaven or jump straight into Frosthaven.
If you're buying Gloomhaven or Frosthaven, you should know what you're getting into. I don't think it's the kind of game that needs to make itself playable by new gamers necessarily. This is the hardcore. I mean, that sounds gatekeepy, but that's great about the other product. Like you said, that brings people in. This is what it is. This is what you're getting. If you liked Gloomhaven at all, it sounds like this is going to be more of the same with extra cool stuff on top of it. 100 scenarios. They had a box mock-up on the show, which I assume is probably final. It was the same size as the original Gloomhaven. Haven't talked about price yet, but it's kickstarting in March in 2020, and it won't be out until probably a year later, 2021.
Yeah, they said they are going to try to rush it, so it does keep a bit of a shorter release time, I guess would be the word you'd use.
Yeah. But it sounds like for the two of us who maybe were more skeptical of the first Gloomhaven, at least in some respects, I am interested in this, and it's made me want to maybe go back and, let's face it, we're never going to finish that campaign. But
the only way we're going to do that is just one of us decides to solo it.
And even then, we might die first. There's just too much content. But it did make me excited to want to get into the Gloomhaven world again. So, very cool stuff. You gotta let us know what you think about Frosthaven if you're excited. If you're one of those rare people who have completed all the Gloomhaven content prior to this,
congratulations.
How? How did you do it? I don't know. But until next time, this has been Roll for Crit.
Never miss out by liking and subscribing, and you can also check out more on our Patreon.
We do weekly podcasts on Patreon. Don't you want to sign up and hear more of our voices?